You matriculated to the front row?
Yeah.
Congratulations. Next stop. So, if you haven't ever joined us before, you can relax. These meetings are very informal, and you're invited to ask any questions of any kind. This is just a dialogue in the profound. And that can take any form. It doesn't always sound profound. The profound includes everything. So you're invited to ask whatever you would like. You're invited to share whatever you would like, and we particularly like to hear reports, meaning what your experience is in regard to things you shared before. Because people come to a meeting like this and come back to a meeting like this because they're looking for transformation. They're looking to understand. They're looking to grow. They're looking to find what's deeper. And it's valuable to hear what you're finding. So, I'll take any and all questions, reports, whatever.
I have a report that in the last couple of days, it seems to me that there's whatever comes up in me, whatever happens, there's far less residue of it once it passes. That the moods or
You've been showering more?
And there's times when things feel much emptier. I mean, it feels kind of odd. It's like I wonder, well, aren't I supposed to be worried about something or concerned about something? And I also had a big...
Well, aren't you? Or are you?
I am, but not all the time. I mean, there's gaps,
Well,
more
are
gaps.
you supposed to be concerned about something?
No, I don't think so. Not in the sense of an anxiety that has no functional action. Not in the sense of just tension.
Okay. So you'll notice the urge to be concerned.
It just happened.
The more you're unconcerned, the more the urge gets felt to be concerned because the societal training is not to be unconcerned. You're supposed to be very concerned with anything and everything. So the more you notice yourself untense, unworried, unconcerned, eventually you'll start to notice that the conditioning of being concerned tries to reassert itself. Now it's almost cliche, it's almost too simple and too often said, but I'll say it anyway. You know, the birds aren't concerned. The trees aren't concerned. The mountains aren't concerned. The clouds aren't concerned. The squirrels aren't concerned. Everybody and everything is just doing their thing. It's only us. It's only the human mammal that has evolved this capacity to, with the thinking brain, take on a whole load of concerns that have nothing to do with life at this moment. And then you're stuck. Then the trouble starts. So don't have any illusions or confusions about life's natural state. Because every other creature and every other living thing shows you the natural state. The natural state is not a concerned thought. It's a organic response to life now. So you can learn from the trees, you can learn from the squirrels and the cats and the dogs how to worry less, how to be less concerned. If you really practice it, it doesn't take long to notice that most of your concerns turn out to be unnecessary. They just seem necessary in the moment of concern. That's the smoke and mirrors power of that phenomena. It reminds me of my spiritual master Osho when they told him he was going to die that day. And he only had hours to minutes left. The doctor who told him that wrote about that day. And one of his comments was there were many people in the room when we told him that today was the last day, he wouldn't even make it till the evening. And it shocked the doctor that of all the people in the room, the only one who seemed genuinely unconcerned was Osho. But he had already, decades before, dropped all need for concern. Because life proceeds without your 2 cents of concern. If today's your last day, all the concern you can muster isn't going to change that. Concern is really lack of trust in life, lack of trust in existence, lack of trust in how you already got here. And in another sense, it's failure to observe how things work, failure to observe that your concerns have never changed the course of anything, that everything has played out, whether you were concerned, weren't concerned, because every adult has had the experience of being very concerned about something and seeing that it turns out how it turns out, and as well as the experience of being totally unconcerned and then being amazed when it turns out fantastic and you had nothing to do with it. Put those two together, those two observations, and it tells you something. Now, yeah, you have to observe it more than once. So you have to see that again and again and again and again. Your concern hasn't really, if you really look at it closely, made a significant difference. If you haven't observed it closely and thought about it, pondered it deeply, then you still have the notion that your concern makes a big difference. But that's simply lack of having scientifically looked closely at it. If you do that, any intelligent adult can do that. It will not take a lot of pondering until it's more and more clear to you that there are bigger factors at play than your concern, and that your concern mostly has the effect of agitating you. Beyond that, the effect is arguably insignificant. It is possible to lose the ability to worry. And it's not even an advanced ability. It is possible to observe closely enough and ponder intelligently enough. It doesn't take 50 years. So that the mechanism of worry, the automatic mechanism of worry that most people carry, simply shuts down. Because now you know better. Now you know that all the worry in the world doesn't make much difference in what actually happens. But first, it has to be observed. First, you have to see it with your own intelligence that it's an overlay. It's not an essential component. It's something you're adding in. Now, you've been trained to do that. You've been encouraged that that's a good thing. But obviously, it can't be a good thing. Nobody is going to argue that it's good to worry. But even given that, you have to see that the worry doesn't add anything, doesn't benefit anything. But I can absolutely assure you that it's possible to live a life that has forgotten how to worry. Doesn't mean you don't get anxious. It doesn't mean that if a difficult situation arises, you don't feel upset or agitated. It means you don't worry about it. You don't. The mechanism of mulling it over and dwelling on it and having every kind of thought from every angle about it doesn't kick in anymore. That mechanism doesn't function. The battery went dead. The switch is stuck on off, however you want to characterize it. It's not actually a big accomplishment, but of course it changes your whole life. Now, it seems to me most people can't even imagine that it's possible to have a life where you don't worry. Because we're so used to worrying, and so it's considered, normal. But we're the only ones who do it. Out of all the millions of types of creatures and life forms on this planet, we're the only ones. So how could that be normal? If it was normal, a few giraffes would worry. If it was in any way normal, some other creature would be biting its nails. But it's just us. So we must have gotten into a bad habit. And it's only because we have the tremendous ability of anticipating. We can anticipate the future. We can through a more evolved and complex brain, consider beyond this moment in an abstract way. The squirrel is considering beyond this moment when they're running around gathering nuts for the cold season, but they're not worrying the way we are. It's not a cerebral or mental process. It's not a emotional state. So, sooner or later that becomes automatic by the time you're, whatever, somewhere between 3 and 10 for most people. And then worry seems acceptable. Everybody does it. So you have to hear this. Somebody has to say to you, guess what? You can be worry-free. And it isn't based on your circumstances. It's based on the process of worrying itself shutting down. Because you've seen clearly enough that over-concern, worrying, doesn't serve anything. That it's just an automatic mental response, mental and emotional response. So look for that. Every time you worry, from tonight on, every time you notice there's a worry, look for what difference did it make in the end. Or do it backwards. Think back to every time you've been very worried about something and ponder it deep enough to answer the question, what difference did it really make in the end? That's actually, more effective than all kinds of complicated spiritual practices or meditations that are meant to, or helpful to, rid you of worry or free you from the worry tendency. But what's quicker and easier and more guaranteed is you simply ponder it intelligently and look at it close and see for yourself whether there's any reason to worry. So you have to hear it at least once that that's possible. That worry is not required. When you tell this to people, you usually get a worried response. Well, but then I won't be taking care of business if I don't worry a little bit. But don't worry about it. They don't even hear that their answer is another worry. Because you don't have to worry to respond, and you don't have to worry to take care of your business, and you don't have to worry to deal with anything. In fact, the worry tires you out and makes you less able to deal with things. That will be one of the signs you'll notice if you really, really progress in your maturity. If you become more mature as a person, more spiritually mature. Sooner or later you'll notice that you're worrying a lot less, and if you're really lucky, at some point you'll notice that you've forgotten how to worry. If that hasn't happened for you yet, then it simply means you've got more maturing to do. Because just as you have been taught that it's natural to worry, which isn't true, it's absolutely natural to grow out of worrying. The ability to worry and the tendency to worry is something that if you matured fully, you would just mature out of, without even having to think about it necessarily. The natural growth process of a human being includes becoming too mature to worry. Worry is a younger phenomenon. Doesn't mean there aren't 90-year-olds who are worried all the time. So when I say younger, I don't mean chronological age. Maturational age. And the whole society is not helping you to become worry-free. They're adding to your worries every time you turn on the TV, every time you pick up the newspaper. So don't look for help out there. It's your own natural maturation process that will help you. And don't even tell your friends once you don't know how to worry anymore, because they won't believe you. They'll argue with you. And you're lying. Because a worry-free person doesn't look tremendously different from a person who still likes to worry. It's not necessarily visible on the outside. So they'll just look at you and tell you it can't be. So keep it a secret. In fact, I never said this. You've been a worrier your whole life.
Yeah.
You're high on the worry scale. So if you are experiencing periods of unconcern, almost qualifies as a miracle.
It's true. Thank you. I also had a big fight with someone, and I never do that. I just kind of let myself go, and I just big fight, and I didn't care.
Did you draw blood?
It was over the phone.
It can be done.
And I had one or two thoughts like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, but then I said there, maybe it wasn't, but then it would just stop, you know, it didn't go round and round about it. It just kind of went.
Was this a service person or somebody you know?
Someone I know.
We've created a monster. So you must not be so concerned about what other people will think.
I felt like, too, I mean, partly my emotions, you know, just were overriding, but partly I felt like I was more willing to trust whatever happened to come up and not try to view it first before I said something or calculate it out.
No, you weren't censoring yourself.
Yeah. It's true.
That's being less concerned. I try to have at least one fight per day with somebody. Because I don't watch TV, I gotta have some entertainment.
Have you had your fight for the day yet? Or are you looking for one?
No, actually I was busy today, so the opportunity didn't present itself. Usually there's no trouble in finding the opportunity that presents itself because somebody comes along and just says, not in these words, but in their behavior, I'm going to act like a complete jerk. And I go, oh, here's my opportunity. And I was wondering when it was going to and who it was going to be. Thank you for giving me entertainment. You may notice my hair is getting longer. That's the result of a big fight.
With your barber?
I'm the same hair cutter for 28 years. And she just insisted on acting so wrong.
Blood was drawn.
Huh?
I said blood was drawn.
No, blood wasn't drawn, but people cowered. But they couldn't understand that I wasn't upset. I was just pretending to be upset. So people got very upset and wound up and scared. One lady said, "You're frightening my children! You're frightening my children! Why do you have to yell?" Because I'm enjoying the fight. I'm not gonna hit anybody, I gotta yell. I was doing it on purpose. But they can't, this is actually a serious point. People can't imagine that you might be yelling because you've decided that you want to make your point in a very, very dramatic way, and that you may look, to other eyes, you may look upset on the outside, but they can't imagine that you're actually not upset because they've never experienced fighting, yelling, acting upset, acting up without being actually emotionally off balance, actually upset. I was yelling like a banshee because this was a very fancy Beverly Hills salon. Mostly movie stars go there. And I wanted to make sure, I was so offended by this behavior, I wanted to make sure that everybody in the salon knew that a customer was unhappy. So I let my good friend, 28-year haircutter, who was trying to talk over me and wouldn't take my complaint, I had to use my tone to let her know that this don't fly! Oh, this is a posh Beverly Hills salon. So the first thing that was said to me by her large and muscular sister who came over was, remember where you are. You can't shout here. Why not? It went on and on like that for 15 minutes. And it got very fun.
Only for you, though.
Yes. Yeah. But it would have been fun for everybody else if they had the eyes to see that I wasn't upset. So I can't help it if they insist on misperceiving.
So what was your message? I'm sorry.
You can't treat me this way. I had gone into, I'll tell you the story. I had gone into the bathroom. I wasn't in the bathroom more than 4 minutes. And there's this pounding on the door. I ignored it. It pounds on the bathroom door if I'm in the bathroom. Public bath, you know, it's a place of business, public bathroom. Door's locked. I'm doing my business.
But 4 minutes?
Yes,
Been pounding, that I've been waiting?
I wasn't in there long. So, half a minute goes by. I ignore it. I didn't say anything, do anything. Somebody's nuts out there. It's not my concern. Less than a minute later, more heavier pound. So I took pity on whoever it was and said, "I'll be out in a minute." One would think that would be enough of a response to end the pounding. Less than a minute later, two-fisted pounding. Okay. Somebody's nuts. I knew it wasn't me. So, in my usual gentle way, I said, what's the problem out there? Right? The hair cutter answered me and said, "Come out of there, people are waiting for the bathroom." Do I look 4 years old? You don't tell a 60-year-old man who's been in the bathroom 3 or 4 minutes, commanding tone. "Come over there. Somebody else wants to use the bathroom." I'm sorry, I've been coming here 28 years. I pay a lot of money, very expensive haircut. I take care of my appearance. And I'm not going to be treated like I'm a 4-year-old. So I was done. I came out. The whole time I was in there wasn't more than 5 minutes, probably less. Standing there when I come out is this lady, middle-aged lady with 2 small kids. Of course, one of them was one. So this is societal conditioning. A little kid should be not made to wait if they can't hold it. And the lady is very, very rich. You can see she's very wealthy. There are people in the salon, $1 million is nothing to them. So this was a case of a very wealthy lady wants the bathroom for her kid. So get your ass out. So I was willing to let it go. It's the kind of guy I am. He would already shot somebody, but I'm not that way. But then another thing happened. I remember I've been doing this 28 years, the same routine. After I get my hair cut, and this was after my hair was cut, I go over to where the sinks and the towels are, and I get me about 3 or 4 towels. They're little towels, so I have to get 3 or 4. And I take them, I get all the gunk out of my hair that she puts in to style it, because I don't like gunk. And I do this every time. And I've done it every time for 28 years. And every time, when they notice that I'm walking around with 4 of the hand towels, they might say, "What do you need the towels for?" This time, they did it like that, but in a very pushy way, in a very "How dare you take 4 hand towels?" And it was just a confluence, because the same girl shampoos my hair every time. And I was walking this way with the towels, and she was walking this way. And another girl was coming from this side, who was also, cleanup girl, shampoo girl. And we all converged accidentally, coincidentally. I'm going this way, they're going this way. And when both of them saw me with little towels in my hot little hands, both of them accidentally said, like a sing-song in unison, but very confrontively, "What are you doing with all those towels?" Well, considering what I pay for a haircut and what I tip the shampoo girl and the hair cutter, if I want to take 50 towels, I'm going to take them. It's not like I'm taking them home and just rubbing my head and throwing them in the linen thing. But there was something about both of them saying it in unison in a way of "Bad boy." As if they haven't seen me do this for 28 years. So the combination of those two factors being yelled at to come out of the bathroom, being yelled at for helping myself to a few hand towels, I made a in-the-moment decision. And I quite like this shampoo girl. I usually bring her a treat, a croissant, or a scone or something when I go in, because I know she likes those things. So I'm quite friendly with her, and I like her a lot. She's very sweet. But I did not like the way she looked at me and the way she said, "What are you doing with all those towels?" So I looked back at her and the other girl who said the exact same words at the exact same time, and I made a decision. I was not upset. I was not angry. I love these people. But I'm also willing to stand up for myself. So it was a conscious decision made quickly. You have to make it quickly in those moments. Most people go numb or just eat it. I do that just as much as anybody else, but that day I decided I ain't doing it. For whatever reason. So I looked at the nice shampoo girl who told me, "What are you doing with all those towels?" And I, in the loudest voice I could muster, without going nuts to somebody who's literally 1 foot away from me, I looked at her, and I looked at the other girl, and I looked back at her, and so they know this is for both of you. I said, "Leave me the fuck alone."
Nasty.
That's exactly what I said. Because I wanted them to understand, don't ever do this again. I wanted there to be no confusion. Now you won't believe the next part of the story. They both started laughing. I was trying to scare them. And they both started laughing. I mean, genuinely laughing. So I just said, "Why are you laughing?" And he said, "Well, you're joking, right? You're not the nicest guy who comes here, so we don't understand the joke, but it's really funny. I mean, we get it that you're trying to joke with us. It's funny." I was not expecting that. That was quite surprising. I'm trying to act mean. They think I'm joking. So I just looked, I said, "I'm not joking." And then they looked really shocked. More like perplexed, like, how can that be? He doesn't talk like that. He's always nice, he brings me sandwiches. I mean, I have never in 28 years had any upset there, caused any problem, raised my voice, complained about anything, nothing. 28 years. So they were like incredulous. They couldn't believe that I meant it. So of course that caused the owner, my hair cutter, to motion me over, because why are you yelling, "Leave me the fuck alone" in the middle of the salon? So I explained it to her. I explained about the bathroom, the pounding on the bathroom, and that that's not okay. And I said, "I just need to hear from you that this is never going to happen again. That anytime I come here in the future, because I plan to come another 28 years at least, and she knows that if I'm in the bathroom, nobody is in. I don't care if I'm in there half an hour. I'm only there a few minutes. And nobody is, you are not going to pound on the door and have the idea that somebody else has better bathroom rights than I do." And she looked at me and she said, I can't promise that. This is, or exactly, she said, this is not your perfect home. I wasn't sure what she meant by that, but then it kind of dawned on me, and I realized what she thought she meant. But what she really meant was, you're not the richest guy who comes here. You're not even rich. We got movie stars, and Hollywood producers and directors, and politicians, and, Britney Spears is in here, wants to use the bathroom. I'm a pound on it if you're in there. If she's saying, that's what she meant. Because she goes Britney Spears. So, and for a number of years, way years ago when I used to go, every time I went, Steven Spielberg was in the next chair. So I said, this is not going to fly. I'm a 60-year-old man. You don't tell me when I can go to the bathroom and when I can't. Not in these circumstances. Public bathrooms for anybody's use who's a patron here. I'm no different than anybody else. And I looked at it and I said, I don't care how rich the other person is. You do not do that to me. You don't do it to anybody, but I can't control what you do to anybody else. I can tell you what's acceptable, not for me. And her response was, no promises. I said, 28 years will end today. And I'll never be back here unless you say right now that this will never happen again. I didn't say it like this because I don't want to scare you with big yelling. I was saying it to purposely get the point across. So, because she was actually, I'm not giving you the full story, she was everything I was saying that I was relating to, she was interrupting me and not wanting to hear it. She was trying to stop me from answering her. And I needed her to hear it. And I needed to make the point. But I was not upset. I was simply communicating in a fun way. Emphatic, but I was enjoying it the way you enjoy a gourmet meal. Because I don't really yell much. And if you've never caused a scene in public and yelled in a public place at somebody who's acting like a jerk, try it at least once. It's very satisfying. It's like a real, you can sink your teeth in it. So I was really enjoying it. And the enjoyment was, of course, increased by people getting all crazy all over the salon doing crazy stuff. Aaron told me afterward what some of the other people, I didn't notice because I was focused on my haircut and having that conversation. But he told me some of the other things people were doing behind me on the other side. Probably would have made a good YouTube video. So, it was just a situation where I was trying to make a point. There was no conflict from my side. There was simply the insistence on being heard. And since I wasn't being listened to in a normal tone, I had to up the ante. So now if you really naturally dislike conflict, it would be a very unpleasant situation. But what am I going to do? So because I've never found anybody who gives as good a haircut, apparently I'm never going to have my hair cut again. Because I can't imagine either deciding to go back there, or even if I did, that they would let me through the door. They'd probably call the police as soon as they saw me walking up the walk. Or the sister, who could wipe the floor with my ass, would probably come out in bed. Because she was getting ready to. So, I burned that bridge. I knew I was burning that bridge. I knew that if I kept on, I can never come back here. And I have searched. It's not easy to find a really good haircut that really is an artist. And I'm willing to pay for it. So I'm sure there's just as good haircutters somewhere in Beverly Hills, somewhere in LA, but I haven't found them. So I knew that I was burning a bridge, and that this is the end of good haircuts the easy way. That I might have to spend a lot of time and energy and money and effort finding another haircutter who could cut hair as good as her. And I've brought her, I don't know how many dozens of customers over the years. And she knows that. So the ending of the story is we leave and she runs out after me and stops me and says, I don't care if you ever come back or don't come back, but you owe me an apology.
Oh.
I agree.
Well, from her perspective, I understand.
Yeah.
You don't like conflict, do you?
I don't like conflicts. I was thinking about the Dalai Lama, who says my religion is kindness.
Yes.
And it's not very kind what you did.
No, it's very kind.
I try to be kind because it feels good.
My religion is also kindness. In fact, forget religion. My chief quality as a human being, that I have no control over, my most essential quality, that is just natural, is kindness.
But not in that case.
You will rarely meet someone as kind as me. I have a hard time being I try to be unkind, and I can't pull it off.
But
So
not
that situation had nothing to do with kindness versus unkindness. That situation had to do with, you will hear my complaint. And if you're unwilling to, and I need a response, and if you're unwilling to both hear it and or give a response, then I will take dramatic license to get your attention. And it also happens that it's quite entertaining. If you do it as a fun thing, the fun level of it is phenomenal. But you can't do that if you are still stuck in the pattern of, if someone does something offensive, you actually inside get upset, get angry, take it personally, any kind of upset. The only reason that I say to you, it wasn't unkind, and the only reason that I did it is because I wasn't upset. If I was upset, I would have kept my mouth shut, because then it would have been unkind. Then I would have said something I would later regret, and I wouldn't have chosen every word I said and every tone I used. But if you still take anything personally, if people still have the power to upset you, then you can't feign anger for entertainment. You'll lose it and be very hurtful. I wasn't hurtful. They might have thought I was hurtful. They might have perceived it that way, but that's not my problem. There was nothing hurtful in it. It was an act. It was a play. It was a series of second-to-second conscious decisions. What am I going to say and how am I going to say it? And a license I gave myself to make a huge drama. Because normally, I don't do drama. The problem is if you do drama because you really think you need to do drama, you're not choosing it. If you choose it 100% consciously, 100% you know what you're saying, you're not being carried away, you're saying it on purpose, you know what you mean, and you know why you're doing it. That's very different than being angry and upset and offended. I wasn't offended. You gotta understand, this is very important to me, having a hair cutter who really is a high artist. She's not a hair cutter, she's a hair artist. And I take my appearance very seriously. I like to look as good as I can, and I'm willing to pay to get the best haircut out there. So for 28 years I was doing that. I can't keep going to a place where I'm treated like this. So I absolutely did not want to lose that haircutter. So I needed her to hear me. Whatever it takes that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable to yell. I mean, once in a blue moon in a situation that you're clearly being shunted aside, you're clearly not taking in what you're saying. So I had to get their attention. I had to get their attention because I wanted to resolve this. And it never even dawned on me that the answer, the response I would get would be, no, I can't promise that. Seems to me, an adult person, and she's 6 months younger than I am, seems to me an almost 60-year-old woman who's been running a business for 30 years, quite successful, and a multimillionaire in her own right. It never occurred to me if I say, hey, this can never happen again. If I'm in the bathroom, you can't be pounding on the door yelling at me to come out because some little kid has to go to the bathroom. It never occurred to me she'd say, no, I can't promise that. My assumption was she'd say, well, that's reasonable, okay. So I was quite shocked. Not upset, just surprised that her answer was, I can't promise that, and I'm not going to promise that. And I read that answer to mean, if the other person's rich enough, I don't care what you think. I'm going to give them preference. That's what I said to her in a very loud voice. I said, I don't care how rich the person is. You don't try to pull me out of the bathroom to give it to them. I don't care if it's the richest person. I don't care who it is. But her answer was, no, I will do it again, in essence. So.
Sounds very dishonoring of you as an individual. And so if anything in the world that you choose to fight for, that would be a good one. That's such a
It was in the moment, and it was simply not acceptable. And I wanted to make sure that I could keep coming there, and it turned out that the opposite is what is the case. So.
Did she know it was you in the bathroom?
Yes, she'd seen me go in.
Oh, even worse. Yeah, I would have yelled twice.
Which means she knew I'd only been in there a few minutes because she saw me go in. This is why I was so sure from the get-go when she started answering me that this is about money. This is about the other lady is probably a billionaire, not a millionaire. And she wants to keep her happy at any cost. What the cost was a 28-year client. But and a 5-year client, how long you been going? 6-year client. So but I enjoyed every second. You can't enjoy it And you can't stay conscious and decide what you're doing and what you're saying if you're actually upset. If you're actually upset, you'll say something. Everybody has experienced this more times than we care to remember, I'm sure, and me too. Everybody has gotten upset and said things they wish they hadn't said and acted in ways they wish they hadn't acted. But you won't do that anymore after you see for yourself, for real, once and for all, that nothing is personal ever. You'll never be offended by anything anyone says or does. I wasn't offended because I allow a lot of leeway for craziness, offensive behavior, jerk attitudes. I expect it. Because most people aren't mature. So that's not offensive to me. I just needed to know it's never going to happen again. So if you really know that no one is ever really personally doing anything to you, if that's become clear to you, then no one ever upsets you again. Then if you become upset, either you're pretending, which that story is the example of, or you actually are upset because you made the decision to become upset, but you made it consciously. You decided you would allow that energy to flow. You decided you would let that chemistry have you. It's like getting drunk. But by the time you see that nothing is personal and you don't get triggered by anything anymore, it would really be rare and unusual to choose to be upset. You can't. You can still let that mechanism take over, but by choice. But usually you decide not to bother, because then there's the hangover. And you know that, so you don't play that game. But you can if you want to, is all I'm saying. It's not like you can't be upset ever again. You can. You can choose it. But you probably never imagined choosing to be upset. You probably only seen being really upset as something that seizes you, takes you over, and you have no control over it. But you do have control over it. You have absolute control over it. But only one way. Not by suppressing it if something is upsetting. That won't work. Then you're just adding fuel to the next time you get upset. Then it's just, pushing down the volcano. But you can have absolute control over it by seeing once and for all that nobody is doing anything to you, even if they are. They just don't know any better. So what's there to get upset about? The perfect example is the one that's in the handout for the Beyond Self training program. There's a whole section on it. Because the point in that is, all you have to do is see how immature and reactive the average person is. Just walk up to a stranger on the street and insult them. I'm not saying that you should do that. That would be unkind. Because they don't know you, they don't know why you're doing it. But you know the answer. You know what the story would say. If you walk up to a stranger and say, your mother wears combat boots or whatever, most people would get upset. I find that at this stage of life quite amazing. Adult people, intelligent people, getting upset if a complete stranger walks up to you and says something to you that's insulting or derisive. Why would you get upset? Why wouldn't you just ignore it and walk away. They don't know you. If I walk up to if you walk up to a complete stranger and say, you're a complete idiot, most people would actually get upset. Now you're a complete stranger. You don't know if they're an idiot or not. You have no way of knowing. But, am I wrong? Most people would get upset, would actually ask, no, I'm not. How dare you? Why would you even answer? The person doesn't know you. The comment is meaningless because they don't know you. Maybe you're an idiot, maybe you're not, but they don't know. Why would you actually react to that? But it's automatic because you've been taught, because the society really supports it, that you should take everything personally. If somebody says something to you, that's personal, even if they don't know who you are, and even if the comment makes no sense. You're supposed to take it personally. You're supposed to be offended. You're supposed to stand up for yourself. That's nuts. It's a stranger. Obviously, they've mistaken you for someone, or you're mentally ill, or something is going on that is not your problem. So just that fact that a majority of people would actually get upset if insulted by a stranger for no reason, out of the blue. Just the fact that that is the majority, it seems to me, it's mind-boggling that people aren't, once they're adults, more mature than that. That's really taking everything personally. If you think what a stranger says to you is personal.
Well, that's the third stranger of the day.
So it's an odd concept if you've never heard it before, or if you are very much affected by the societal conditioning that says otherwise. Some people are more, some people are less, but let me say it as extremely as I know how, because I know it to be absolutely so, that nothing in this universe is personal. Nothing that's ever been done to you, said to you, nobody who's ever beaten you, nobody who's ever shot you, knifed you, tried to kill you, called you any name or bad word, has ever created a situation that truly, in any real way, is personal, is about you. Shooting you is not about you. If I'm shooting you, it's about me. This universe doesn't do personal. That's our perspective, our twisted viewpoint, because we're so sensitive. We think we're so important. It's a kind of an arrogance. It's personal. It's about me. It's never about. It can't be about you. So it sounds wrong. It sounds like that can't be true, but that's only because we're all supported to take things personally. We're all conditioned to, we're all supported to continue that. Maybe there's a possibility in an open mind to consider that things may not be as personal as we think, or not everything is personal. But I'm saying a much more radical thing. Nothing is personal. Nothing ever. It's just a confluence of energies. It's just an arising in that moment. And it's not about you. There's more going on in you. It's really a kind of a selfishness, a kind of a, you think you're the center of the world, to take most things, or even some things, personally. But you've never been told otherwise. So that's my job, to tell you what isn't true, that you are absolutely convinced because everybody else has said this is the way it is. I have to try to find a way to unconvince you. I have to try to get you out of the conventional way of thinking so that you start to recognize with your own eyes how things actually work, so that you're no longer the prisoner of every idiot that wants to insult you. So if nothing is personal, you never have any reason to be upset, and you can pattern yourself after the Dalai Lama and practice kindness always. Because nobody's doing anything to you. There's no reason to not be kind, even to those who are grossly unkind to you. It's odd because certain situations look personal, sound personal. Somebody calls you an idiot, it sounds personal, but that's how you've been taught to view it. I'm trying to unteach you that view. To get upset because of something someone said. To get upset because of some words, even if it's words that really hurt, and even if it's somebody who really does know you or you care about. To get upset because words were said. Do you see how immature that is? They didn't even shoot you. They didn't even hit you. They just said some words, and you couldn't step aside and just wait. You'll have your response. I'm not saying that you won't feel a certain inner response, a certain emotion, upset, but it's very easy to just step aside. It's very easy to just wait for that to subside, and then go back and deal with it. Say what you have to say, but not while the anger is there, not while the upset is there, because then you're not saying what you want to say. The anger is speaking. The unkindness is in charge. The upset is doing all the talking and responding. You're not in your right mind. Anger and upset is drunkenness. You're not in your right mind. So just wait till you're in your right mind. You know, usually it's less than 5 minutes if you actually wait. Anger rises quickly if it's strong and falls just as quickly.
What about the kind that's like deep-seated and longer lasting? Having said what you did about strong anger being quick to rise and fall, leads me to ask about more persistent, kind of subtler, longer lasting, but less intense anger that some people I think just have as blocks within them.
Well, that's something else. That's a different phenomenon. And it would be great to talk about that in more depth, but we don't have the time tonight. But they're two different things. The quick rise of anger, that's in everybody. That's the human condition. We are conditioned to believe that that's okay, and we are certainly a violent species. That's the mammalian response. So we are not a peaceful species. There are creatures on this earth who are peaceful. We ain't them. If we're allowed to continue here and evolve further, it would be nice if we got to a point of development where we were, as a species, mature and became more peaceful, but we're not even close. We're still at the 12, 13-year-old level of everything's a big deal. And, fuck you! And in fact, the society has endorsed that. It's now acceptable. It wasn't acceptable 20 years ago to say, fuck you every 5 seconds. That's now, you can't go to a restaurant and not hear somebody say that. When I was 20, you would have been thrown out of a restaurant if you said that. If a person talked that way in a public place, they were considered abnormal. Something was really wrong with you. Now it's normal, considered normal. Nobody throws anybody out for talking like that. And I must be the only guy in LA. I must be, because I will go up, if I'm in a public place, particularly a restaurant, and my food's already come, and I can't move to another table, all tables are full, I will go, I'll stand up, walk around to the booth next to me, and tell those people, you're in a public place. When you're at home, you talk how you want. But I'm trying to have my meal. And I am not interested in hearing you say four-letter words in every sentence you use. So, knock it off. When I leave, you can say whatever you want. But while I'm sitting here, that's not okay. I know, and I said to people, and he'll verify. I said, I know you don't know any better than this. I know you haven't been taught better. I know it's not like that anymore. That was in my day when people were taught, you don't talk like this in public. I know that's not the case anymore. But you know what? I don't care that you weren't taught that. You can desist for the next 20 minutes while I finish my ravioli. I've done that numerous times. And you'd be amazed at how nice and apologetic and sorry, people are. I have never gotten a bad response to that even one. I've never gotten like, shut up, old man. I would have thought I would have at least once or twice. Because I grew up in the ghetto. I'm kind of fearless. I'll go up to tough looking guys and say that if they're at the next door. I mean, I don't care who you are. Because I won't put up with that. See, people don't understand this. We're over time, but let me just say this because you'll never hear it anywhere else. There's nothing wrong with four-letter words. Words are just words. But words do have energy. And four-letter words have tremendous energy power. And the use of four-letter words when they're not necessary, to use them as pepper, as commas, the way people do now, is a tremendous energy drain. If you start to pay attention to it, you'll see it's true. But most people are insensitive to it. You've never noticed it. Nobody tells you this. And to sit simply next to it and listen to it, again and again and again and again, every sentence, is very energy draining for the person listening. That's the only reason I get up and I ask them to stop. I'm not offended by bad words. I'm not puritanical. It's not the words. It's the energy effect. I just am being drained for no reason. And why should I put up with that? They can desist for a few minutes. So, I don't use four-letter words for that reason. I use them when they're useful. And because I never generally say a bad word, if I really want to get a point across and throw it in, people know I'm serious. People stop and go, ooh. So don't think that the way people talk now is meaningless. Your energy is being drained every time you hear this kind of conversation, this kind of style of speech that has become acceptable and okay. It's on television, it's in the movies, it's on every street corner, it's in the booth next to you. That didn't used to be okay in this society. It's not about, oh, they use bad words. That's not it. The energy drain is phenomenal. Phenomenal. You have no idea. You have no idea. And I'm not going to get drained like that. I don't have that much energy to begin with. Somebody who doesn't know what they're doing is going to drain my energy, and I'm not going to say, hey, cut it out. And I make sure that they understand that I'm not moralistic or puritanical. So I throw the word in that I'm objecting to every time to make sure. I said, I don't care how many times you use the word fuck. I have nothing against the word fuck or shit or anything. But I'm trying to eat here. And it's unpeaceful. So just don't do it while I'm here. So that's my gift to them, a new perspective that nobody has ever mentioned. That's why I say that. I want to make sure they know that it's not a puritanical idea. Use a bad word. That's not that. Then they'll just dismiss it. It won't be a teaching. They won't get anything out of me objecting. But if they realize he has no problem with the word, then later, the next day, later that day, whenever, a week later, something has to click a little bit. Well, why would he object if the word isn't the problem? Maybe a little light dawns that it's not meaningless to talk this way. It's extremely violent. An extremely violent way of talking for no reason. If you need to be violent, then be violent. But why be violent for no reason? At a lunch table. So I cause a lot of trouble. I'm not unwilling to speak up. I can be a good troublemaker. I try to make as much trouble for you guys as I can. I try to throw a monkey wrench into your conventional mindedness and conditioning. My job is to deprogram you. You are programmed to believe that a whole lot of things are okay and don't matter, that actually matter a lot. And you are also programmed to feel and think and believe that a lot of things matter a lot that don't matter at all. And that's why you get upset if somebody does something. And that's why you're controlled by your chemical reactions instead of your wisdom. So if I have any success in deprogramming you, the result will be that your chemistry and your biology and your creatureness will have less influence than your natural divine wisdom and actual maturity. Next week there'll be a test.